Sashital. Welcome to the Born Global Community Blockchain Circle Time. My name again is Mahesh Sashital. I'm the co-founder of Lucrisma. And what we do is we make access to mortgages, auto loans, DeFi loans, as simple as shopping on Amazon through the use of blockchain and AI by tokenizing financial users' data, right? Born Global, as many of you probably know, it's a nonprofit organization, and we're on a mission to essentially propel diverse entrepreneurs and investors with a global mindset and to interconnect local and international innovation ecosystems. And we're committed to cultivating that galaxy of global innovation, and we've got to focus on startup development. And we also have a startup venture arm as well. And we just want to create this network as well as some digital media and thought leadership, educational programs, and community building. That's essentially what this is. And these circle times, this is the blockchain circle time, but then we have similar circle times for different kinds of topics as well. And that's kind of what Born Global has been started to do. And before I even get into it, I want to first of all recognize and thank Sunny for essentially starting this entire Born Global thing and making this event actually happen. So Sunny, Sammy, and everybody else a part of the Born Global team, thanks for doing this and thanks for having me. I want to introduce our guest. Our guest tonight is Emil Mamedov, and Emil has a decade-long investment career. He's done it in energy, transportation, B2B SaaS, as well as in blockchain. So he started his venture career at a company called General Catalyst Partners. It's a $6 billion AUM VC fund. And he later continued investing as a principal at the Massachusetts Clean Energy Fund in Boston. In the last few years, he's been focused more on the B2B SaaS and blockchain software infrastructure investments at Applied Crypto. His notable investments have been Algorand, Mythical Games, Oxio.io, and Staked. And prior to his investment career, he spent a number of years with IBM with their technology development and delivery practice. And even before that, he was in the oil and gas industry. Emil happens to be in Houston, and he's a good friend of mine. We met a year and a half or so ago, probably coming up on a couple of years now, and we've been talking about everything. Blockchain and Web3 is a great resource to talk about all of these things, and of course, his perspective on the investment side of things is what is kind of very interesting for a lot of founders, including somebody like myself. So, Emil, welcome and thank you for joining us here today.
Thanks, Mahesh. Thanks for having me, and thank everybody for joining the call. Look forward to having this chat.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Emil, in case I missed any of that, feel free to add any more color to your background, anything that you want to, really point out. Feel free to add anything else.
Oh, yeah, I think you've covered it well. The only thing I'll mention is my sort of approach to blockchain. So, given my background coming from more traditional old industries, quote unquote, oil and gas, insurance. And so my lens is sort of quite pragmatic in terms of, how blockchain can be applied to traditional industries to create and capture value. So rather than say trading or NFTs or crypto. So my view is different in that regard.
Sure. No, and I think that's kind of where a lot of investors, as well as a lot of the startups, have kind of evolved away from the the NFTs, the Bored Apes, and all of that kind of stuff. So to more real world applications of blockchain and Web3. and we'll kind of talk a little bit about that as well. So, but before all of that, I do want to kind of talk about the crypto markets. It always is an interesting time when we talk about Bitcoin prices and crypto prices in general, right? But we've seen today it's probably gone over 35. I don't know if it's getting close to 36. And just the other day, I was actually joking with somebody. We were talking about how it's the bear market in the crypto space, and I was like, well, is it still a bear market if crypto prices have pretty much doubled in this year, right? I know we're way off whatever the all-time high was from a couple of years ago, but I just wanted to get your take on where this is going, where, of course, what's happened in this past year, right? We've seen, of course, everything that's coming out of the FTX lawsuit, but the trial actually. But I wanted to kind of talk about what is happening in the crypto markets itself. Where are we, and where do you see us going? And of course, none of this is going to be investment advice or anything. So, you feel free to give that disclaimer if you'd like. We're just having a conversation about the markets, where we are right now.
Yeah, actually, I view FTX lawsuit as a positive, as is, Celsius Network. We really need to clean up the space from bad actors, which will allow more legitimate projects to, come to market and gain investor confidence. So, because prior to this, the loss of credibility really affected the markets. In terms of Bitcoin, rallying, of course, there are ETF approval rumors. In my view, this is just one of the key things. The other thing is more and more investors realize that Bitcoin could be inflation hedge with the deficit, with everything that's going on around the world, the inflation fears. Bitcoin could be a hedge against that. And as part of it, maybe a third factor in my view is more both sort of individual investors as well as maybe institutional investors begin to consider Bitcoin as another bucket of diversifying their wealth, which is not as correlated with the stock market. I mean, in my view, there is still correlation to a certain degree. However, still not to a positive one. So I think this is another factor. So it's just another way to diversify wealth. And so typically a small portion of wealth, anywhere maybe between 1% and 2%, or someone deciding to allocate to Bitcoin. So
yeah,
I think this is what drives. And looking at Fidelity, they've been working very hard on their Bitcoin offerings and products. So.
No, absolutely. I think the Bitcoin ETF definitely has a huge part to play, and I think the Bitcoin halving that's going to happen probably.
Yes.
I think it's scheduled to be Q2 sometime, and that's historically been the way that the bull run actually starts. It gets kicked off around that time. And of course, past performance is not an indication of future, but that seems to be what's happening, and it's going to happen again this year as well. The indications seem to be there. So I think a few of these things, and of course, the way Bitcoin goes, the rest of the crypto market goes as well. So we're seeing Ethereum at 1,800 and so on and so forth. But yeah, I don't want to talk too much about that, but this is an interesting time when it comes to for startups in this in the Web3 space, in the blockchain space, because whether we like it or not, blockchain is somehow tied to Bitcoin, even though Bitcoin is just one aspect of blockchain.
Yeah.
And we always see a lot more interest in blockchain projects whenever Bitcoin starts going up, and crypto prices start going up, even if the projects have really nothing to do with crypto. Even supply chain blockchain projects, they get more interest when Bitcoin and crypto prices go up. So it's an interesting time for builders like myself as well. But having said that, let me talk about Web3, right? So, from your point of view, what is your definition of Web3? Because you'll see, like, you ask 5 different people, and you'll probably get like 7 definitions of Web3, right? So, what is your definition of Web3?
At a very sort of simplistic level, the way I look at it is a collection of nodes that store, verify, and process transactions that are not controlled by any central entity, but by community through the use of a set of rules or protocols.
Yeah,
that's really what it is, in my opinion. So,
yeah, I like that definition. From my point, I'll give you mine, and you can kind of see how they're similar, but you hear different aspects, because again, Web3 is not a technology, it's a set of technology. It's more of a philosophy, even, if you will. But from my point of view, it's along the lines of having multiple nodes. It's all about decentralization and ownership of your own data, right? So these are the 2 principles from my point of view about what would constitute Web3. So, like, Lucrisma is a Web3 platform because the user has the ability to own their own financial data, at least on the Lucrisma site itself, right? Within the app itself. But what are some of the interesting applications of Web3? As an investor, what are some of the things that you have been looking at? What are some of the projects that have come to you? What are some of the ones that have been interesting for somebody like you? And in general, if you look at the market itself, like the VC industry, we've of course seen the pivot from Web3 or blockchain and crypto to AI. Everybody is now an expert in AI, right? But there are a number of Web3 investors. So what are they looking at? What are some of the interesting projects that you've come across?
yeah. Probably my view is perhaps unique to my experience. So there are first of all, there are various funds, and they have different mandates. Some funds include invest in gaming, others in NFTs and applications, and so on and so forth. In my experience, I've been primarily focused on infrastructure investments, and those tend to be technologically more differentiated. So specifically, the projects that I would consider interesting to me would be ZK proofs, zero knowledge proofs, and their applications in various settings. Basically, verification that data is valid without actually revealing the data. So that has numerous applications across, banking, lending, insurance, supply chain, and so on and so forth. So, and typically I would prefer technologies not just with one vertical application, but that could be applied broadly. So another application would be, we're in my opinion, Web3. We're going to be in multi-chain world. As we all know, there's Aptos, there's Sui, there's Algorand, Ethereum, Near protocol. All of those protocols have various languages. Some of it's written in Solidity, other in Rust, versions of Move language, and so on and so forth. So if you're on chain 1, want to transfer assets to chain 2, it's still not working properly. It's subject to vulnerabilities, first of all. Then there's also inefficiencies in information value transfer. So any technology that would help reduce that friction would be of interest. Although I have to say that I've seen, so those technologies would be, as they're called in the industry, the bridges. But I have seen a number of bridges, or dozens of them for that matter. So, but still, I'm looking at unique solutions that would help make multi-chain world happen. Yet another, if we're switching gears to more sort of DeFi area, one of the key areas that I think very interesting to me, and that's also leverages machine learning. I don't want to use AI. It's been overused for so many times. So many times, I'm going to use machine learning techniques to detect and prevent fraudulent transactions in real time. What I've seen so far in the market is sort of, and Chainalysis may fall into that category, where analysis happens post factum, and usually takes a few hours before you discover where the funds went. It's too late. So there are technologies out there that utilize mapping and machine learning algorithms to, again, to do just that, to prevent fraudulent transaction in real time. So that would be another interesting areas. More broadly, I would say I'm personally excited about making smart contracts actually smarter, as opposed to simple sort of if-then sort of statements. They could be much more to what they're now. Imagine if you can put legal contracts on smart contracts in code, and so that would really speed up liability determination in so many. It could uncover a number of use cases. Insurance being one example, where, say, liability determination, it can take weeks actually to process a claim, for example, simply because a claim processor has to read through legal requirements. Each state has different legal requirements, and so on and so forth. So if everything is on smart contract, then this could be streamlined. So these are sort of general sort of areas. And of course, privacy and security, they will always be areas of interest. They typically never go away. So,
yeah, no, absolutely. I think those are all things that we've kind of seen, especially the bridges and things like that. We've seen so many different bridges, like you mentioned, and well, whether we like it or not, those have been historically the places where a lot of the hacks happen, right? And so it is a kind of a dangerous, if you will, kind of a place to be. But then that's where the opportunities are. And having a cross-chain kind of a future is definitely going to be the reality. It already is, right? And we don't want to be stuck in a situation where, the developers or the users or anybody really has to decide beforehand whether they want to be on a Bitcoin or an Ethereum or, whatever, right? Solana and so on and so forth, right? I threw in Bitcoin there, even though it's not, doesn't quite belong with the rest of them, but you know what I'm saying. So I also want to talk about you'll hear whenever you talk about Web3, one of the things that we've seen that I've come across over the last number of months is the tokenization of real world assets. There was a report that Citibank put out earlier this year, which basically said that tokenized real world assets is going to be a $5 trillion industry by the end of this decade. And that is obviously a massive, massive number. Of course, a lot of it has started off with real estate, right? And we're also seeing a number of government tokenization, of government bonds and things like that, right? So, but the bottom line is that tokenization of real world assets is something of a lot of interest for a lot of people. People are trying to tokenize anything and everything, right? Or real estate, bonds, notes, all of those things for sure. But we're also seeing, I've seen art, of course, music, movies. I've seen spirits like whiskeys and wines and things like that as well, you know. So what have you seen in that space? Because that is a lot of interest for a lot of people. And uh, now the tokenization itself, I think, is not the huge technological marvel that I guess everybody is talking about. But I want to get your take on that.
Absolutely. I believe the first, tokenized real estate pitch to me was about 6 years ago. And since then, I've been hearing the pitches several dozens every year. So, and you're totally right. Again, I come from a venture capital fund manager perspective, which is very different if you're, say, an individual investor or family office, and you may have different reasons to invest in tokenization of real estate. So therefore, I come with a venture capital lens. And so when we invest, we typically look for technological innovation and how that creates a sustainable advantage, in addition to everything else, of course. And so, yes, tokenization does not create that for us. And therefore, as a rule, we typically pass on those kind of investments. That's not to say that this is not a great area.
Yeah.
As an individual investor or whatever, I'm sure this is a great way to diversify wealth, potentially create additional stream of income, and so on and so forth, for wealth preservation. But yes, in venture capital, we typically shied away from those kind of investments, and I've not seen any sort of unique technological advantage. And so, in my view, advantage would really come from access to real estate assets, which then the investment would behave as a real estate investment, so as opposed to a venture investment.
Yeah, no, I think that's a valid point, because tokenization at this point of, especially of real estate and things of that nature, it's become more of a commodity to a certain extent. And that's kind of why ours is differentiated. We tokenize financial data, the way we do it, and of course the way everything fits together is different. But when it comes to the tokenization of real world assets, I'm just going to generalize it, we see a lot of these kind of services which will come and do the tokenization for you. And I think the heavy lift when it comes to the actual tokenization of real estate, especially, is from the legal standpoint. It's that is really the secret sauce for a lot of these companies. It's not necessarily the tokenization technology. And I had Ed from Red Swan, who was our guest the last time around. And he runs a company also based here in Houston called Red Swan, and they tokenize commercial real estate, and they've been quite successful with what they've been doing. They've already tokenized a few $1 billion worth of commercial real estate. But again, they are not a tech company; they are a real estate company, right? To your point. They're not a tech company, so they are a startup, but they're not a tech company. They just utilize the technology from somebody else. Their secret sauce again is their connections in the real estate market, as well as the legal structures that they put together, and so on and so forth. The operational nature of their business. That's really what they are focused on.
Absolutely.
Okay, so yeah, do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, it's totally understandable. Also, I mean, I would say though, now that we're in real estate, there are opportunities blockchain in real estate. In real estate transactions, for example, when there's so many parties involved to close a transaction, having one database where all information is stored and retrieved really can speed up that transaction. So that's one use case where, as a VC, would consider investing, because that's a tech applied to this particular use case.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of my pet peeves has been the title.
Yep.
When I bought this house, it was a brand new build, and we still had to go through the title search, the title insurance, all that kind of stuff. And of course, we had to pay, whatever the standard fees are, and so on and so forth. It was basically it really is just a database search at this point, and I think that can be replaced using blockchain technology. But that requires a lot of integration with government records, county records, all that kind of stuff, which is kind of where the issue really happens to be, I guess. Anyway, so what I did want to do is dig a little deeper. Oh, before we go forward, I did want to let whoever is on, I wanted to let them know that if you have any questions, feel free to add into the chat. And Sammy, if you can, if feel free to just take a look at the chat, and if there's any questions, we can definitely answer them. And we'll leave about 10-15 minutes at the end if anybody has any questions, and we can definitely answer those. But Emil, what I really wanted to also talk about in the second half is dig a little deeper into your investor point of view, right? So get your investor hat on. When you're looking at blockchain or Web3 projects, what are you personally looking for? And more broadly, is that what generally VCs look for? Essentially somebody who's in let's say in my space, right? So in where I'm at, what kind of advice can you give somebody like me? Oh, you are muted for some reason.
Okay, yeah, by mistake I muted myself. But specifically to answer quickly to you, like give you a short answer, you can make any VC shut up about having any doubts about your business if you have customers. That's the proof was in the pudding. That's one thing. Short of that, we would look favorably onto companies that actually know the market really well. They understand their ideal customer profile. They understand the decision-making process, the sales process, and actually have potential customers or at least design partners in their pipeline. This is one thing that I would give advice to. At least to me, this is one of the most important things, apart from everything else. Now, looking at broadly, I don't really view decision-making about making an investment in Web3 blockchain any different from any other sort of traditional venture capital sort of investing decision-making process. Obviously, there's team, and we look at both technical and business savvy, especially if a company is working on some fundamental technological innovation in blockchain space. I'll give you an example. Algorand, which is a new L1, or new, that was a few years ago when we made an investment. The inventor, Silvio Micali, is Turing Award winner. He's basically one of the top cryptographers in the world. So, but again, because he was building this new L1, this was required. But again, he was still in academia and still is. He needed to be paired with a business savvy person, which who was also on the team, multiple times serial entrepreneur, successful one. And so we really look at that combination of technical and business savvy, and also the founder market fit. There's founder market fit, product market fit, but the founder market fit, can the founder sell the product? Does he have or she have the right contact within the industry? Can he or she build a team? Are they leaders in the field? So all of those kind of things are important to us, and just on the team perspective. And of course, there's market. One of my pet peeves is when entrepreneurs talk about the market very broadly.
Yeah.
And there's a phrase, if you capture 1% of $100 billion market, that's a huge market. I never look at those numbers. Really, I want to understand what's your pipeline, how many customers can you approach realistically, how many you can close, what does that mean in terms of your revenue, and really build up from that. When I see the entrepreneurs have gone through this exercise and look through those numbers, then I think, okay, this is somebody I can take seriously. Of course, that's also we're looking at, in addition to looking at the product roadmap. Quite often, product status, product roadmap, they are not aligned with the sales. Sometimes the sales happen much sooner, and then you start looking at the product roadmap, and the product isn't even ready, and it's going to take another 6 months to 9 months. And that's when the founder loses credibility instantly. So I would really encourage founders to consider everything as one sort of working in unison. And of course, there's competition that we're looking at. Again, as I mentioned, there's countless numbers of startups working on NFT marketplaces, wallets, decentralized exchanges, variations of it. We typically do not invest in those, simply because it's very hard to differentiate yourself from many others. And if there is differentiation, then we need to understand what's the value proposition. And especially if the blockchain project is targeting a B2B space, how does that translate into KPI for their customers? What's the cost reduction or time reduction or revenue lift or both? What's the improvement in the customer satisfaction score? So that's really what we're looking for. And just applying that criteria, a lot of the, that's why sort of we would typically invest in 1 out of 100 companies.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's really the process that we would go through.
Yeah, and I'm guessing, well, I don't know about your, I want to talk in general about the VC space, especially the Web3 industry, I guess, is how it has changed over the last 2 or 3 years, right? I personally know companies that have raised $3, $4, $5 million on a deck with 15 slides on it, and of course, a lot of them, some of them are doing okay, but most of them have burned through that money, and they're not really doing as well. And of course, it's a completely different market at this time. Today, everything that you just mentioned, this is across the board for all different VCs. But I know you also do individual investments as well. You're an angel investor in some projects. So do you have like a different set of requirements or criteria when you're doing an angel investment, like for yourself, versus doing it as a VC? Because obviously with a VC, it's a fund, you have LPs and you have other investors that you have to answer to. As an angel, you have to do it for yourself. a lot of VCs will, they will say, well, I invest like I would do as well. But I wanted to get your take on it. When you look at it as an angel investment versus a VC, do you look at things differently?
In my particular case, no. I'm simply leveraging my sort of existing expertise as an investor, and then applying it to angel investing situation. But I would go through similar sort of decision-making process. Of course, as an angel investor, you would not have access to the same information. So if I'm writing much smaller checks, I cannot ask an entrepreneur, send me your financials and all of that.
Sure.
So by doing, I have to go through a different sort of route, talk to other investors, including venture capital investors, and then make decision this way. Now, the other difference, of course, is that as a VC, we manage the fund on behalf of limited partners, so we have a mandate to invest in certain type of companies because that's what we promised when we raised the fund. As an angel investor, I don't have the mandate, so there's more freedom to invest in whatever projects I'd want. However, again, in my particular case, I tend to be very pragmatic in terms of how I approach investments. So I wouldn't, in my case, again, there wouldn't be much difference in how I'd make it an investment. So they will have to the best possible degree, I would try to dig for information that I would need to make a decision, tempered by the fact that I'm not writing a big enough check to ask for this specific information. So it's yeah, that would typically be the process. But yeah, again, I would ask the team, of course, the deck, and ask those probing questions, and do sort of a sniff test myself. And if this is something not familiar to me, then I would ask around.
Okay, sure. And what about investment in, so we are talking on the Born Global Forum. So I wanted to ask you about investment in foreign companies as well.
Mm-hmm.
And also investments or investors outside of the US, right? So who want to invest in companies that are based here. First of all, have you done any foreign investments? That's the first question. And then more generally, are you seeing more interest or more traction when it comes to blockchain and Web3 outside of the US, mainly because of the dampening effect of the SEC and everything that's happening over here in the US?
Absolutely. So yes, we've done in the past investments in outside of the US. Specifically, we invested in a Chinese company. We also invested in a company that had multiple sort of headquarters in the US, in Europe, in Mexico. So it's sort of international company. So yes, I've done that. In terms of the blockchain investment, I think without a doubt, if you ask any investor, Dubai is now emerging as a sort of center of blockchain. For many reasons, the talent is there. A lot of migrants recently, a lot of capital, first of all, is there, and typically technology follows capital. So yeah, Dubai, I would think, is one of the key emerging areas. And so yeah, a lot of projects are moving there. I talk to entrepreneurs, wherever they're from originally, they're moving to Dubai.
Yeah. Yeah, I've come across a number of people who've actually moved from here, even from the Bay Area, to Dubai, and at least one of them was like, well, I lived in the Bay Area for 15 years. I just moved there, and I've been there for a year, and it was the best decision of my life. That's literally what he told me.
I mean, having said that, I'll just quickly mention core tech innovation still continues to come from the US.
Yeah.
And typically those are, I mean, come from universities like MIT, Stanford, and of course there are many more, but specifically some projects that I've seen, yeah, it's MIT, Stanford, and maybe some other, Carnegie Mellon would be another one. So those ecosystems are typically producing more core tech fundamental innovation. In Dubai, it's more of a, I get a feel that this is more of a applications, which is still interesting, but you know, not core tech innovation necessarily.
Right. We do want to get into Q&A, but before we do that, I want to ask you one last question about what you know, put on or gaze into your crystal ball, if you will, and what do you see 2024 look like for investors and entrepreneurs, startups trying to raise money in the next year or so?
Well, first of all, it's going to be hard, I think, for at least the next probably 6 months. Hopefully after Bitcoin halving, and usually, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think by observing in the past, after halving, Bitcoin price still goes up for the next several months, and that's when the markets begin to, there's promise, and then the investment follows. Personally, I'm excited about, again, real world applications, be it applied to trade finance, supply chain, and there are companies, if we look at adoption, you know, IBM continues to work on the Hyperledger and partnering with enterprises who want to, you know, track the supply chain, whether it's, you know, counterfeit goods or, you know, foods, whatever is, you know, happening to food in the supply chain, making sure the food is not spoiled and all of that. And of course, applications in other industries. So as well as, you know, looking further in the future is where machine learning and Web3 cross. And that's where we may see the rise of the sort of decentralized autonomous organizations. So basically decentralized autonomous intelligence. That's probably further away, but as an investor, typically we invest for a little long term as opposed to short term. So we're really looking at 8-year horizon. So, but this is something I'm excited about. For entrepreneurs, I mean, the practical advice would be to get those customers. If you can keep your burn rate low, that's great. Go about your go-to-market strategies more focused way, as opposed to approaching multiple markets at once. Otherwise, you're going to waste resources. So just watch your burn rate and try to close as many customers.
That's excellent advice, I think. In general, in no matter what industry, what time we are in, I guess. But
yes, absolutely.
Okay, so we have a few questions. Let me read a few of them. Rami, you have a question. Feel free to unmute and ask it